clicked in my head, and I'm like, all right, there's something going on in my brain that is not quite right. And what's more important than having a job, a salary, and my own apartment is like fixing that. And so moving home was the decision to make. And then, like you said, sort of putting the mirror in front of yourself. That's what I've been doing for the last year and a half. And it's been 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but absolutely the best thing I ever did. And I feel so bad because I'm sure you know people who haven't been able to do that because it's hard. It's a level of vulnerability that we're not really taught or encouraged to encounter with ourselves. But God, it's worth its weight in gold.
Welcome to Men Are Forged Podcast. This is your host, Cartwright Morris. Excited to have you in today. If this is your first time, jump over to menareforged.com and to find out more information about the podcast, as well as some other services I provide that help you advance into your purpose. So it's menareforged.com. All right, that quote was from my episode on Monday with Brent Giannotta, which is really fascinating just about Brent and his journey and his life, that he was in the Middle East as a redheaded white guy, being in the Middle East and being hostile territory, working for the U.S. government, where there's probably many people who didn't like him. I imagine he probably did experience a lot of great locals. There's a lot of people in that area that are very welcoming, but I imagine there was a lot of hostility. But you heard that quote that wasn't until he left the government and left the Middle East that he was living in New York and working on Zoom and trying to do a job over Zoom in the middle of a pandemic, that he really experienced some level of true, just like personal anxiety about himself, about his identity. And I think that's the differential part here, that we can put in very anxious situations, high stress, intense situations where anxiety would naturally come up, right? Or just even high stress, right? But then when it starts hitting at the core of who we are, our identity, or beginning to question ourselves, that's when it really, like he said, we got to put the mirror up. We got to really understand what's happening. Because many times we can write off anxiety. It's the situation, the circumstance. But really it's pointing to something deeper, something a little more meaningful in us. And that's a great time that he said, I think most of us just aren't willing to do that, aren't willing to go there. And like he said, it's more than a job or a salary. That true success is our willingness to be who we are wherever we go, to be 2 feet in, feeling that rest in who we are. Yeah, it's such a, that's, I think, the willingness to pursue that, no matter what we sacrifice or put aside. I know many times I talk about in the show of like to truly get where you want to be and be who you want to be. There's things you got to sacrifice, you got to put down. And for Brent, it was really good. I think that was great, just how he put it that way. There's no job or salary worth that. And I had to put the mirror up. I think to look ourselves in the eye and ask who do we see in the mirror is so valuable and is such a needed skill, or a needed practice in our life, to be thankful for that person, to value that person, to love that person. But I think it starts, and this is kind of what I'm getting to, is you really see Brent in his life, the practice of curiosity. It's what led him in the practice he was of, like he said, he's not a confrontational guy. He's not a violent guy that, so when 9/11 happened, his initial response wasn't going to the military. It was to understand that world and a whole group of people that thought differently than him, that had different value system than him, that saw him as an enemy, and that led him into his Middle Eastern studies and understanding global politics, which I think that naturally served him later in life, where he was wondering why he was at where he was at. anxious, afraid, just working from an apartment in New York City and losing his job and wondering what to do next, that, this is the time to really start self-reflecting, to engage in who he was and understanding more of himself. So I think that, so right there in itself, I think that's maybe my message today is, are you letting curiosity truly take over in your heart, in your mind, in your being, to pursue the things that you need to pursue in your life, especially personal growth. I think we have to be willing to fail. That's the thing about curiosity and creativity. When we allow those things in our life, we have to be willing to fail on the other end, to maybe not get the result that we expect, or the feeling of contentment, the anxiety to go away. But we have to chase that curiosity and see it all the way through. I think the times that I've not chased curiosity, especially when it comes to my personal growth and understanding more of myself, has led just to more anxiety, has led to more disappointment, has left to me trying to control every situation, and ultimately disappointment and feeling a level of lack and discontentment. Where when I've chased curiosity of, man, I have to grow in this area no matter how I look, in the midst of chasing this, of growing up, being more present in who I am, more restful in who I am, and not worrying about things around me versus the thing in me, the person, the self. Valuing him, loving him well, right? And that leads to, we're best to serve others by a position of strength. And when we start addressing these things in life of why I feel anxious in a situation that I shouldn't feel anxious, that's when we can start as a great opportunity to start addressing that and not avoid it, to step into it. So, many of you have seen some of my hashtags and some of the focuses, the topics I like to hit on. One is, like he hits on, is embracing the discomfort of that. We have to fully step into that. We can't avoid it, can't walk around it, can't look for the pill to fix it. We got to actually think about it. And then two, is, taking massive action. That's something I'm really realizing people we really look up to, they're willing to do that, whether it's, starting a business, pursuing a relationship, or just finding that place in yourself, finding that where you are really growing and learning, and you actually are valuing yourself in your life, and you're not waiting for a circumstance to fix something, and that you're actually taking that action, that you're headlining, you're pursuing. You're not taking a passive approach to that. It is so needed. And I just ask for you today to do that. What is that massive action that I can take right now towards my mental health? Is that taking care of my body better? That could be leaving my job. That could be doing something new. That could be having a hard conversation with a friend, a colleague, or a significant other. Of you've been hitting the cruise control for too long. You've been trying to move around this thing for too long, and it's time to address it. And as a believer, we can invite God into these moments and address these moments to really speak to us, to set the heading, to make the difference, to change us. Because you can't do it alone. That's the thing. Too many of us, we try to figure this out all by ourselves. We try to work out in our head. I am guilty as anybody of being too analytical, and therefore I don't allow that curiosity. I don't allow the action to be at the forefront. And I think right now, I really encourage y'all to be curious about the things that you're struggling with, understand why they are the way they are, and then taking action. Let those two things be your guide at your forefront of your personal journey of figuring out you. Because I think, like he said, at the end of the day, there's no job, there's no house, there's no salary, there's no amount of money that's going to change that. You will always be the common denominator, whether you live in a mansion or a shack. You are the common denominator. So let's be curious. Let's take action today. So it may for some of y'all, it may actually look like a big action, like moving across the country, like I did when I was 26. For some of y'all, it just may mean something small. It could be something little, like a change of diet, or just a conversation with someone, or just not doing a regular activity that you do that's really wearing you out, that you're doing it out of obligation for someone because you're worried about what they might think of you, and you just should stop doing it. Maybe massive action sometimes looks like just not doing something that you've always done. So thank y'all for listening, and I'll see you next time. Thank y'all for listening to the Men of Forge podcast. This has been another great episode as I'm moving towards my goal of 100 episodes. So I thank you for listening. I hope you keep listening. And so I've had a lot of amazing guests, some great authors that come on this podcast, and they're promoting their books. And, if you liked the interview and you really want to buy their book, this would really help them out as well as myself. And you can help the Men of Forge brand continue to grow, is to go to menofforge.com/authors. The link will actually be up at the top in my heading of my website, but you can literally go through the entire list of the authors that have come on my podcast, and you can buy the book right there through Amazon. So go to menofforge.com/authors. But that's not it. You could also go on Amazon and leave them a review if you like the book. So that really helps them out. But I thank you for listening, and I'll see y'all next time.